It's been a rocky few months since I left my cheating wife. I packed my bags, blocked her number, and moved to a new place on the other side of town, trying to rebuild my life from scratch. The betrayal cut deep, but I told myself I could start over. I had no kids to worry about, thankfully, so it was just me, my work, and this new chapter. One late evening, after a particularly grueling day at the office, I parked my car in the driveway. The quietness of the neighborhood was comforting, a stark contrast to the chaos of my thoughts. As I got out and locked the car, I heard rustling from the bushes near my front door. My heart rate spiked, and I instinctively reached for the gun I kept in my glove compartment. Living alone taught me to be cautious. "Who the hell is there?" I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. I saw a shadow emerge from the darkness, a man, disheveled and desperate-looking. Whoa, man! I'm not here to hurt you," he said, raising his hands in surrender. "I need to talk to you. Please, just hear me out." I didn't lower my gun. "Who are you? What do you want?" My mind raced with possibilities. Was he a thief? Someone sent by my ex to harass me? The tension was palpable. I'm John," he stammered. "I know your ex-wife. She's been lying to you. There's more to the story than you know." A chill ran down my spine. "What are you talking about? I've heard enough lies from her to last a lifetime." He stepped closer, cautiously, as if he was trying to read my reaction. "Please, just let me explain. It's about Lisa. You need to know the truth." Reluctantly, I gestured for him to sit on the porch steps while I kept my distance, gun still in hand. His presence was unnerving, but curiosity gnawed at me. What more could there be? "Lisa has been seeing me for the past 2 years," John began, his voice trembling. "I didn't know she was married at first. She said you two were separated." I felt a familiar rage bubbling up. "And you believed her? Just like that?" He looked down, shame evident on his face. "I did. But when I found out, I wanted to break it off. She kept making promises, saying she would leave you. She lied to both of us." "Why are you telling me this now?" I demanded, my grip tightening on the gun. "Because," John hesitated, "she's not just seeing me. There are others, and she's planning something that involves you." I couldn't stay silent anymore. The weight of his words sank in, a mix of disbelief and anger swirling in my mind. Could Lisa be even more deceitful than I had imagined? I had to know the full story, but first, I needed to get some control over this situation. "All right, John," I said, lowering my gun just slightly. "Start from the beginning, and don't leave anything out." John took a deep breath, rubbing his hands together nervously. "It started about 2 years ago. I met Lisa at a coffee shop. She was charming, beautiful, and, well, she had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. We hit it off immediately. I felt a pang of jealousy mixed with anger. That was how Lisa always was, beguiled everyone with her charm. "Go on," I urged, trying to keep my voice steady. "She told me she was in a complicated marriage, that you were more like roommates than husband and wife. She said you had separate lives and that she was planning to leave you." I believed her. She made it sound so convincing, John explained, his eyes reflecting his regret. I clenched my jaw, memories of our life together flashing through my mind. Had it all been a lie? "And you never questioned her? Never thought to dig deeper?" I asked, my voice tinged with bitterness. John shook his head. "I know I should have, but she was so convincing. She showed me messages, fabricated ones, I realize now, that painted you as a distant, uninterested husband. It wasn't until a few months in that I started to suspect something wasn't right. She would disappear for days, sometimes weeks, without a word. When I pressed her, she would get defensive, saying she needed space to sort things out. I could feel my anger rising, but I kept it in check. "So, what made you finally see the truth?" John looked down, guilt etched on his face. "I found out she was seeing other men. At first it was just a suspicion. She had this habit of leaving her phone unattended, and one day I saw a message from another guy. It was explicit. I confronted her and she broke down, admitting to having multiple affairs. She begged me not to leave, saying she would change, but I couldn't take it anymore. I ended it. "Why didn't you come to me then?" I demanded, my voice cracking with emotion. "Why wait until now?" John sighed. "I was scared, embarrassed. I didn't know how you would react. But then, a few weeks ago, Lisa contacted me again. She was frantic, saying she needed my help. She claimed you were threatening her, that you were dangerous. She wanted me to help her get something from your house, something she said was hers but that you wouldn't give back." I shook my head in disbelief. "I never threatened her. I left because I couldn't take the lies anymore. What was she after?" "She never told me exactly, just that it was important and she needed it to start over," John said, his eyes meeting mine with sincerity. "I came here tonight because I realized she's not just manipulating me. She's using everyone around her. And if she's desperate enough to lie about you being a threat, who knows what else she's capable of." The weight of his words settled in. Lisa had always been manipulative, but this was a new level of deceit. "Do you have any proof of what you're saying?" I asked, needing something concrete to hold on to. John nodded, pulling out his phone. "I saved the messages, the ones she sent me recently. They're pretty damning." I took the phone, scrolling through the messages. The conversations were filled with lies, manipulations, and schemes. She was using John, just like she had used me. My blood boiled as I read through her deceitful words, each one confirming what I had feared. Lisa was far more dangerous than I had realized. I handed the phone back to John, my mind racing with what to do next. "All right, John, I believe you, but we need a plan. If Lisa is as desperate as she seems, she won't stop until she gets what she wants. We need to find out what that is and stop her." John nodded, determination in his eyes. "I'm with you, whatever it takes." As we sat there on the porch, the gravity of the situation sank in. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about uncovering the full extent of Lisa's lies and stopping her before it was too late. And for the first time since I left her, I felt a sense of purpose, a drive to see this through to the end. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of determination. John's revelations had opened a new chapter in this twisted saga, and I was ready to face it head on. I reached out to a private investigator, someone who could dig deeper into Lisa's activities without raising too much suspicion. John agreed to meet me later that day to discuss our next steps. As I sat in my living room staring at the empty space where my life with Lisa had once unfolded, a flood of memories threatened to overwhelm me. But I pushed them aside, focusing on the task at hand. I needed to figure out what Lisa was after and why she was so desperate to get it. John arrived in the afternoon, looking more composed than the previous night. "I did some thinking," he said, settling into a chair across from me. "Lisa mentioned something about a safe. She said it contained important documents and other valuables." "A safe?" That was news to me. I had never seen a safe in our house, and Lisa had never mentioned one. "Did she say where it might be?" I asked, feeling a spark of hope. "She was vague," John admitted, "but she mentioned the basement a couple of times. Maybe it's hidden down there." The basement. Of course, it was the one place I rarely went. Lisa had always taken care of storing things down there, and I had never questioned it. "Let's check it out," I said, leading the way to the basement door. The basement was musty, filled with old furniture, boxes of forgotten items, and holiday decorations. We started searching, moving boxes and looking behind shelves. It felt like hours had passed when John suddenly called out, "Here, I think I found something." I hurried over to where he was standing. Behind a stack of boxes, there was a small, inconspicuous door set into the wall. It was locked, but I remembered seeing a key in Lisa's jewelry box upstairs. I ran to get it, my heart pounding with anticipation. When I returned, key in hand, John stepped back to give me space. I inserted the key into the lock and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a small metal safe. My hands trembled as I reached for the dial. "Do you know the combination?" John asked, peering over my shoulder. I thought back to our wedding anniversary, something Lisa had always insisted was special. I tried the date, and to my relief, the lock clicked open. Inside the safe were documents, photographs, and several small, velvet-lined boxes. I pulled out the contents, laying them out on a nearby table. There were deeds to properties I didn't know we owned, bank statements from accounts I had never seen, and photos of Lisa with various men, including John. There were also letters that detailed plans and schemes that made my blood run cold. She was planning to leave me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but not before she took everything. John sifted through the papers, his face pale. It looks like she was setting up multiple lives, with different men in different places. She was going to disappear, take all your money and start fresh. A wave of nausea hit me. The betrayal was more profound than I had ever imagined. We need to take this to the police, I said, gathering the documents. She needs to be stopped. John nodded. But be careful. If she realizes we're onto her, she might do something drastic. I agreed, but I couldn't let fear paralyze me. We were dealing with a master manipulator, someone who had no qualms about destroying lives for her own gain. We had to act quickly and decisively. I called the private investigator, updating him on our discovery. He agreed to meet us the next day to discuss the next steps. John and I spent the rest of the evening organizing the evidence, preparing for what was bound to be a long and arduous battle. As night fell, the gravity of our situation settled over me. Lisa was out there, plotting her next move, unaware that her secrets were unraveling. I knew this was just the beginning, and that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But I was ready to face them, determined to reclaim my life and stop Lisa from hurting anyone else. And for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had a plan, we had the evidence, and most importantly, we had the truth. It was time to take Lisa down. The next morning, I met with the private investigator, a grizzled, no-nonsense guy named Mike. He had a reputation for being thorough and discreet, just what we needed. I handed over the documents we had found in the safe, watching as he sifted through them with practiced ease. "This is a gold mine," Mike said, looking up at me. "She's got her fingers in a lot of pies. It's going to take some time to unravel all of this, but I'll get to the bottom of it." "Just tell me what I need to do," I said, eager to move forward. "First, I need to trace these accounts and properties. We need to find out where she's been hiding and who she's been dealing with. This isn't just about infidelity anymore, it's about fraud and conspiracy." John joined us a little later, looking more resolved than I had seen him. "What's the plan?" he asked, sitting beside me. Mike laid out our strategy. "We need to stay under the radar while we gather evidence. If she catches wind of what we're doing, she might disappear for good. I'll handle the financials and track her movements. You two need to keep a low profile and act as if everything is normal." John and I nodded in agreement. It was a lot to take in, but we were committed to seeing this through. We spent the rest of the day with Mike, going over the details and planning our next steps. That evening, as I was driving home, I received a call from an unknown number. I hesitated before answering, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hello?" "Hey, it's me, Lisa," a familiar voice said, dripping with fake sweetness. I felt a surge of anger but kept my voice steady. "What do you want, Lisa?" "I just wanted to talk," she said, her tone shifting to something more serious. "I've been thinking a lot about us, and I think we should meet. There are things we need to discuss." I knew better than to trust her, but this could be an opportunity to gather more information. "Fine. Where and when?" "Tomorrow evening at our old place," she said. "I'll be there at 7. I agreed, ending the call and immediately contacting John and Mike. We devised a plan to ensure my safety and to gather any evidence we could from the meeting. Mike would be nearby, ready to intervene if things went south, and John would be on standby, ready to help if needed. The next day was a blur of preparations. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting to the upcoming confrontation. By the time the evening rolled around, I was a bundle of nerves. I arrived at our old house early, parking a few blocks away and walking the rest of the distance. Mike and John were already in position, watching from strategic points. At 7 sharp, Lisa arrived. She looked the same, beautiful and deceptive, her eyes scanning the surroundings before she walked up to the front door. I took a deep breath and followed her inside. The house was eerily quiet, filled with memories of happier times. Lisa sat on the couch, looking up at me with those familiar, manipulative eyes. "I've missed you," she said, her voice soft and almost genuine. "We had something special, and I think we can get it back." I laughed bitterly. "Missed me? You've been seeing other men, lying and planning to rob me blind. What's so special about that?" Her expression hardened. "You don't understand. I did what I had to do. You never appreciated me, never gave me what I needed. Those other men, they filled the void you left." I clenched my fists, trying to keep my anger in check. "You're unbelievable. This isn't about what I didn't do. It's about your selfishness and greed. I know about the accounts, the properties. You were planning to take everything and disappear." Lisa's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed in anger. "You've been snooping around, haven't you? You have no idea what you're getting into." "Maybe not," I admitted, "but I'm not letting you get away with it." She stood up, her face twisted with rage. "You think you can stop me? You're pathetic. I've always been 3 steps ahead of you." Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Mike stepped in, his presence intimidating. "I think it's time you leave, Lisa," he said, his voice calm but firm. Lisa looked from Mike to me, realization dawning in her eyes. "You're making a big mistake," she hissed, grabbing her bag and storming out. I watched her go, feeling a mix of relief and dread. This was far from over, but at least now we had the upper hand. Mike patted me on the back, reassuring me that we were on the right track. As I drove home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lisa's parting words were more than just a threat. She had something up her sleeve, and I needed to be ready for whatever came next. The battle was just beginning, and I was determined to see it through to the end. The days following the confrontation with Lisa were tense. Mike was working tirelessly to trace the accounts and properties linked to her, while John and I tried to keep our heads down. It wasn't easy, knowing that Lisa could strike at any moment. One afternoon, Mike called with some news. "I've traced one of the properties to an address downtown. It's registered under a fake name, but I'm confident it's one of Lisa's hideouts." "Should we check it out?" I asked, eager for any lead that could bring us closer to stopping her. "Yes, but we need to be careful. We don't know who or what we might find there," Mike cautioned. John and I agreed to meet Mike at the address later that evening. It was a small, nondescript apartment building, the kind of place you wouldn't look twice at. We parked a few blocks away and approached cautiously, our nerves on edge. Mike picked the lock on the front door with surprising ease, and we slipped inside. The apartment was sparsely furnished, with just the essentials. It was clear that whoever stayed here didn't plan on making it a permanent home. We split up, searching for any clues that might shed light on Lisa's plans. I rifled through drawers, checked behind picture frames, and lifted up cushions, looking for anything out of place. John focused on the bedroom, while Mike checked the bathroom and kitchen. "Hey, I found something!" John called from the bedroom. I hurried over to find him holding a small notebook. It was filled with scribbled notes, addresses, and dates. Some of the entries were cryptic, but others were more revealing. "She's been meeting with someone regularly," John said, pointing to a series of dates. "Look here. Meeting with us to discuss plans. And it's the same name, M, over and over." M could be anyone, I mused, flipping through the pages. But these dates, some of them match when she disappeared for days at a time. Mike joined us, glancing at the notebook. "This could be her accomplice. We need to find out who this M is." We took photos of the notebook's contents before putting it back in its place. We didn't want to tip off Lisa that we had been there. As we left the apartment, a sense of urgency washed over me. We were getting closer, but there were still too many unanswered questions. Back at my place, we pored over the notes, trying to piece together the puzzle. One entry stood out. "M's warehouse. Meeting at midnight." "This could be our chance," Mike said, tapping the entry. "We need to stake out this warehouse and see who shows up." That night, we drove to the address listed in the notebook. It was in an industrial area, surrounded by other warehouses and factories. We parked a good distance away, using binoculars to keep an eye on the entrance. Hours passed, the darkness swallowing the streets in silence. At exactly midnight, a black SUV pulled up. A tall man stepped out, looking around cautiously before heading inside. We couldn't see his face clearly, but his posture and movements radiated confidence and authority. "That must be M," John whispered, his grip tightening on the binoculars. "Let's get a closer look," Mike suggested, motioning for us to follow him. We approached the warehouse quietly, sticking to the shadows. Mike, ever the professional, had a small camera with a telephoto lens. We hid behind a stack of pallets, close enough to hear muffled voices coming from inside. "He's definitely her accomplice," Mike whispered, snapping photos. "We need to find out what they're planning." Suddenly, the warehouse door opened and Lisa stepped out. My heart skipped a beat. She was talking animatedly to the tall man, gesturing wildly with her hands. It was clear she was agitated. "We need to hear what they're saying," I said, inching closer. Mike handed me a small parabolic microphone, and I aimed it towards them, trying to catch their conversation. "Need to be careful," the man was saying. "He's on to us. We can't afford any mistakes." Lisa's voice was sharp. "I know, but we're running out of time. We have to move fast." The man nodded. "We'll stick to the plan. Make sure you're ready." They talked for a few more minutes before getting back into the SUV and driving away. My mind raced with the implications of what we had heard. "They're planning something big," I said, turning to Mike and John. "We need to figure out what it is and stop them." Mike nodded, his expression grim. "We've got a lead. Let's follow it." As we drove back, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the edge of something huge. Lisa and her accomplice were plotting something that could destroy lives, and it was up to us to stop them. The stakes were higher than ever, but I was ready. This time, I wouldn't let her get away. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Mike spent hours analyzing the photos and audio recordings we had captured, while John and I tried to piece together what we knew. The man, M, was clearly someone powerful, but his identity remained elusive. Lisa's desperation and agitation suggested that whatever they were planning was imminent. Mike's investigation finally paid off when he discovered that M was Marcus Turner, a wealthy entrepreneur with a reputation for shady dealings. Turner owned several businesses, some legitimate and others less so. He was known for his ruthless tactics and connections to organized crime. "We're dealing with a dangerous man," Mike said, his face etched with concern. "This isn't just about infidelity and fraud anymore. This is a matter of life and death." John and I exchanged worried glances. The stakes had just skyrocketed. "Do we have enough to go to the police?" I asked, hoping we could put an end to this nightmare. "Not yet," Mike said, shaking his head. "We need more concrete evidence, something that ties Lisa and Marcus to their plans. We can't risk tipping them off and having them disappear." Our only option was to continue gathering evidence and stay one step ahead of Lisa and Marcus. Mike tracked their movements, and we discovered that Marcus owned a private club downtown, a place where deals were made and secrets were kept. "We need to get inside that club," Mike said, determined. "It's likely they're meeting there to finalize their plans." "How do we do that?" John asked, looking skeptical. "We can't just walk in." Mike smiled, revealing a confidence that was reassuring. "Leave that to me. I have a few contacts who owe me favors." The plan was set. Mike would use his connections to get us into the club, where we would gather whatever evidence we could. It was risky, but we had no other choice. The night of the operation, we dressed the part. Mike had secured invitations through a friend, and we arrived at the club dressed in our best suits, trying to blend in with the wealthy and powerful clientele. The club was luxurious, with dim lighting and an air of exclusivity. We mingled with the guests, keeping an eye out for Lisa and Marcus. After an hour, we spotted them in a secluded corner, deep in conversation. They were surrounded by a few bodyguards, making it clear that getting close wouldn't be easy. "We need to find a way to listen in," Mike whispered, nodding towards a door marked private. We discreetly made our way towards the door, slipping inside when no one was looking. The room was empty, but we could hear voices through a thin wall. Mike set up his equipment and we listened. "Finalize the transfer," Marcus was saying. "Once the money is in place, we can disappear." Lisa's voice was tense. "And what about him? He's getting too close." Marcus laughed. Don't worry about him. I have people who can take care of it. My blood ran cold. They were talking about me. We need to move fast, Lisa insisted. I don't want anything to go wrong. It won't, Marcus assured her. By this time next week, we'll be long gone, and he'll be out of the picture. Mike motioned for us to leave. We had heard enough. As we exited the club, my mind was racing. Lisa and Marcus were planning to transfer a large sum of money and then disappear, leaving me in the dust. Worse, they were planning to get rid of me. We need to act now, Mike said, his voice urgent. I'll take what we have to the police. It's enough to get them involved. John and I agreed, feeling a sense of relief mixed with dread. The next few days would be crucial. The following morning, Mike met with his contact in the police department, a detective named Sarah Collins. She was tough, no nonsense, and had a reputation for getting results. This is serious, she said after reviewing the evidence. We'll need to move quickly and carefully. If they suspect anything, they'll bolt. Sarah organized a task force to monitor Lisa and Marcus. We were on high alert, knowing that one wrong move could ruin everything. The tension was palpable as we waited for the police to make their move. 2 days later, the police were ready. Sarah had obtained a warrant to search Marcus's properties, and a plan was in place to apprehend both him and Lisa. We were instructed to stay out of sight but be ready to testify if needed. That evening, the police raided Marcus's mansion. John, Mike, and I watched from a distance, our hearts pounding. The operation was swift and efficient. Marcus was arrested, along with several of his associates. Lisa was taken into custody as well, her face a mask of shock and fury. As the police led them away, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was over. The nightmare that Lisa had created was finally coming to an end. But as we drove home, Mike received a call from Sarah. We found something during the raid, she said, her voice grim. You need to see this. We hurried to the police station where Sarah showed us a file recovered from Marcus's office. It contained detailed plans for their escape, including fake identities and offshore accounts. But there was something else, a list of names, people they had planned to eliminate. My name was at the top. This was more than just a scheme to steal your money, Sarah said, her eyes serious. They were planning to eliminate anyone who stood in their way. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Lisa had been willing to go to any lengths to get what she wanted, even if it meant taking lives. The woman I had once loved was a stranger, a dangerous and ruthless stranger. But now, she was behind bars, and I could finally begin to rebuild my life without the constant threat hanging over me. As I left the police station, I felt a sense of closure. The battle was over, but the scars remained. It would take time to heal, but I was ready to move forward, to reclaim my life and find peace. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. With Lisa and Marcus behind bars, a heavy weight lifted off my shoulders. But the road to recovery was just beginning. The next few days were filled with police interviews, statements, and endless paperwork. Detective Sarah Collins assured me that both Lisa and Marcus would face severe charges and their chances of evading justice were slim. But even with that assurance, the emotional toll of the past months was immense. John and I met up at a small cafe downtown, a place I had discovered recently that had become a quiet refuge. He looked tired but relieved, a mirror of my own feelings. We did it, John said, taking a sip of his coffee. They're caught, and they're not going anywhere. Yeah, I replied, staring into my cup. But now what? How do we move on from this? John sighed, leaning back in his chair. It's not going to be easy, but we have to try. We have to rebuild. We sat in silence for a while, each lost in our thoughts. Eventually, John spoke up again. You know, I've been thinking about leaving the city, starting fresh somewhere new. This place has too many memories. I nodded, understanding completely. I've thought about that too. Maybe it's time for a change. We finished our coffee and parted ways, both of us contemplating what the future held. Back at my house, I found myself wandering through the rooms, each one filled with ghosts of the past. It was time to make a decision. I called a real estate agent and put the house on the market. It was a symbolic gesture, a way to close this chapter and begin anew. Over the next few weeks, I started packing up my things, deciding what to keep and what to leave behind. It was a cathartic process, one that helped me let go of the pain and betrayal. I found a small apartment in a different part of the city, a place where I could start over without constant reminders of Lisa. One evening, as I was sorting through old photos, I came across a picture of Lisa and me on our wedding day. We looked so happy, so full of hope. I stared at it for a long time before tearing it up and throwing it away. That chapter of my life was over. Mike remained in touch, checking in on me regularly. He had become more than just a private investigator. He was a friend. He encouraged me to take things one day at a time and reminded me that healing wasn't a linear process. "You'll have good days and bad days," he said, "but you'll get through it. Just keep moving forward." One day I received a call from Detective Collins. "I thought you'd want to know," she said. "Lisa and Marcus have both been denied bail. Their trial is set for next month." "Thank you, Detective," I said, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. "I appreciate everything you've done." "You're welcome," she replied. "And remember, if you need anything, we're here to help." As the trial date approached, I focused on rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends, started a new job, and even took up some hobbies I had neglected over the years. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the pain and anger threatened to overwhelm me. But slowly I began to feel like myself again. The day of the trial arrived, and I found myself sitting in the courtroom, surrounded by people who had been affected by Lisa and Marcus's actions. John was there, along with several others who had been caught in their web of deceit. Lisa looked defiant, while Marcus seemed resigned to his fate. The prosecution laid out a compelling case, detailing their fraudulent activities, their plans to flee, and their attempts to eliminate those who stood in their way. It was a stark reminder of just how dangerous they were. When it was my turn to testify, I took a deep breath and recounted everything I had been through. It was painful, but it was also cathartic. I felt a sense of closure as I spoke, knowing that I was finally putting this nightmare behind me. After several days of testimony, the jury reached a verdict: guilty on all counts. Lisa and Marcus were sentenced to lengthy prison terms, ensuring that they wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else. As I left the courtroom, I felt a sense of relief and finality. The chapter was truly closed. In the weeks that followed, I focused on moving forward. I joined a support group for people who had experienced betrayal and found solace in sharing my story and hearing others. I continued to build my new life, embracing the opportunities that came my way. One day, while walking through a park near my new apartment, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, an old friend from college named Emma. We caught up over coffee, reminiscing about the good times and sharing our experiences. "You've been through a lot," Emma said, her eyes filled with empathy. "But you're strong. I can see that." "Thanks," I replied, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. "It's been tough, but I'm getting there." As we parted ways, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a new beginning waiting for me, one filled with possibility and healing. And for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to believe that the future could be bright. I was ready to embrace it, one step at a time. Meeting Emma felt like a turning point. It was the first genuine connection I'd made in a long time, untainted by the past. We started hanging out more often, going for walks, grabbing coffee, and eventually having dinners together. It was refreshing to be with someone who knew me before everything fell apart. One evening, after a particularly pleasant dinner, Emma and I sat on a park bench watching the sunset. The conversation naturally drifted towards our past relationships, and I found myself opening up about Lisa more than I had with anyone else. "It must have been so hard," Emma said, her voice soft. "To go through all of that and still come out on the other side." "Yeah, it was," I admitted, looking at her. "But it's also taught me a lot about myself. I know what I want now, and more importantly, what I don't want." Emma smiled, her eyes twinkling in the fading light. "And what do you want?" I hesitated for a moment, choosing my words carefully. "I want honesty, trust, and someone who values the same things I do. Someone who can share a life with me, not just coexist." She nodded, understanding. "I get that. After my last relationship, I realized how important those things are too. It's not easy finding someone who matches your values, but when you do, it's worth it. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying each other's company. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace and optimism about the future. As weeks turned into months, my friendship with Emma deepened. We supported each other through the ups and downs, and slowly, I felt myself healing. The scars from my past were still there, but they no longer defined me. One weekend, Emma and I decided to take a trip to the mountains. It was a spontaneous decision, and we both needed a break from the city. The fresh air and beautiful scenery were rejuvenating, and it gave us a chance to reflect on our journeys. On our last night there, sitting by a campfire, Emma turned to me with a serious expression. "I've been thinking a lot about us," she said, "about how we've both been hurt and how far we've come since then." I nodded, listening intently. "I want to be honest with you," she continued. "I've developed feelings for you, and I think there's something really special between us. But I also know we both have our pasts to deal with, and I don't want to rush into anything." Her words hung in the air, and I took a moment to process them. "I feel the same way," I admitted. "I care about you a lot, and I think we have something worth exploring, but I agree. We should take it slow and make sure we're ready for whatever comes next." Emma smiled, relief washing over her face. "I'm glad we're on the same page. Let's just enjoy this and see where it leads." Our relationship blossomed naturally from there. We continued to support each other, building a strong foundation of trust and understanding. It wasn't always easy. There were moments when the ghosts of our pasts resurfaced, but we faced them together, growing stronger as a couple. As time passed, I found myself feeling more content and fulfilled than I had in years. Emma brought out the best in me, and I felt lucky to have found someone who truly understood me. One evening, several months later, as we were watching a movie at my apartment, Emma turned to me with a mischievous smile. "I have a surprise for you." I raised an eyebrow, curious. "Oh? What is it?" She pulled out a small envelope and handed it to me. Inside were 2 plane tickets to Paris. "I thought we could use a vacation," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "And I've always wanted to see Paris." I was stunned. "This is amazing. I've always wanted to go too." "Then it's settled," she said, leaning in for a kiss. "We're going to Paris." The trip was magical. We explored the city, visited museums, and enjoyed romantic dinners by the Seine. It was a chance to escape from our routines and focus on each other. The more time we spent together, the more I realized how much Emma meant to me. One night, as we stood on a bridge overlooking the Eiffel Tower, I took her hand. "Emma, I know we've both been through a lot, but I can't imagine my life without you. You've brought so much joy and love into my life, and I'm grateful for every moment we share." Tears welled up in her eyes as she smiled. "I feel the same way. You've shown me what it means to love and be loved. I'm so happy we found each other." In that moment, I knew that the future held endless possibilities. With Emma by my side, I was ready to embrace whatever came our way. We had both been hurt, but together, we had healed and built something beautiful. As we stood there, hand in hand, watching the lights of Paris twinkle around us, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The past was behind us, and the future was bright. And for the first time in a long time, I was truly happy. Returning from Paris felt like coming back to a new reality. The trip had solidified what I had begun to suspect. Emma was the person I wanted to share my life with. We were no longer just 2 people healing from past wounds. We were partners building a future together. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Emma and I moved in together, choosing a cozy apartment that felt like a fresh start. We filled it with memories of our adventures, laughter, and the simple joys of everyday life. One day, as we were unpacking some boxes, Emma found a journal I had kept during the tumultuous months with Lisa. She looked at me, a question in her eyes. "Do you mind if I read this?" she asked gently. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Go ahead. It's all part of what brought me here." She spent the afternoon reading, occasionally looking up to ask me questions or share a thought. When she was done, she closed the journal and took my hand. "You've been through so much," she said softly. "But I'm glad you came out of it stronger, and I'm glad you found me." "Me too," I replied, squeezing her hand. "I wouldn't change a thing if it means being here with you." Our lives continued to intertwine in wonderful ways. We supported each other's careers, shared hobbies, and even adopted a dog, a playful golden retriever named Max. He quickly became part of our little family, adding even more joy to our lives. One weekend, we decided to take Max for a hike in the nearby mountains. As we reached the summit, we paused to take in the breathtaking view. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the landscape. "This is perfect," Emma said, leaning against me. "I could stay here forever." I felt a surge of emotion, knowing that this was the moment I had been waiting for. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box. "Emma," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "From the moment we reconnected, I knew there was something special about you. You've brought so much love and happiness into my life. I can't imagine a future without you." Her eyes widened as she realized what was happening. "Will you marry me?" I asked, opening the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. Yes, of course." I slipped the ring onto her finger, and we embraced, our hearts full of joy and excitement for the future. Max barked happily, as if he understood the significance of the moment. As we made our way back down the mountain, hand in hand, we talked about our plans for the wedding and our future together. It was a beautiful day, filled with hope and promise. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair, attended by close friends and family. It was held in a charming garden, surrounded by flowers and twinkling lights. As we exchanged vows, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought us here. "I promise to love you, support you, and cherish every moment we share," I said, looking into Emma's eyes. "You are my partner, my best friend, and my heart's true home." Emma smiled, her eyes shining with love. "I promise to stand by your side through the highs and lows and to love you unconditionally. You have my heart, now and forever." The ceremony was followed by a joyful celebration filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt toasts. John, who had been a steadfast friend through it all, gave a speech that brought tears to my eyes. "To my dear friend," he began, raising his glass, "you've shown incredible strength and resilience. You deserve all the happiness in the world, and I'm so glad you found it with Emma. Here's to a lifetime of love and adventure." The rest of the evening was a blur of happiness. As we danced under the stars, I felt like the luckiest man alive. The past was a distant memory, and the future was filled with endless possibilities. Emma and I spent our honeymoon traveling through Europe, exploring new places, and creating beautiful memories. Each day brought new adventures and deeper connection. We returned home, ready to embark on the next chapter of our lives together. In the years that followed, our love continued to grow. We faced challenges, celebrated successes, and supported each other through it all. Max was a constant source of joy, and we even added a new member to our family, a baby girl named Lily, whose arrival brought even more love into our lives. Watching Emma with Lily, I felt a profound sense of contentment. We had built a life filled with love, trust, and happiness. The journey had been difficult, but it had led us to a place of true fulfillment. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching Lily play with Max, Emma turned to me with a smile. "I'm so grateful for our life together," she said. "We've come so far, and I couldn't imagine it any other way." I took her hand, feeling the warmth of her love. "Neither could I," replied. "Here's to many more years of happiness." And as the sun set, casting a golden glow over our home, I knew that our journey was just beginning. The future was bright, and with Emma by my side, I was ready for whatever came next. Life with Emma, Lily, and Max was a dream come true. Our days were filled with laughter, love, and the simple joys of family life. Each morning, I woke up grateful for the second chance I had been given, determined to make the most of it. One afternoon, as I was working from home, The doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Detective Sarah Collins standing there, a serious expression on her face. "Detective Collins, what brings you here?" I asked, surprised by her visit. "May I come in?" she asked, her tone indicating that this was more than a casual visit. I led her to the living room, offering her a seat. Emma was in the kitchen, and she came to join us, sensing the gravity of the situation. "What's going on?" Emma asked, her concern evident. Sarah took a deep breath before speaking. "We've uncovered some new information about Lisa and Marcus. It seems that their network was larger and more dangerous than we initially thought. We've been monitoring their associates, and we've discovered a plot that involves targeting those who testified against them." A chill ran down my spine. "Are you saying we're in danger?" Sarah nodded. "We believe so. We've increased security measures for all those involved, but I wanted to personally inform you and make sure you're prepared. We're doing everything we can to keep you safe." Emma and I exchanged worried glances. Just when we thought we had left the past behind, it seemed to be rearing its ugly head once again. "What do we need to do?" I asked, my protective instincts kicking in. "For now, stay vigilant and report any suspicious activity," Sarah advised. "We've assigned officers to patrol the area, and you'll have direct contact with a security team. Don't hesitate to reach out if you feel threatened." We thanked Sarah for her dedication and promised to stay alert. After she left, Emma and I sat in silence, absorbing the news. "I can't believe this is happening," Emma said, her voice trembling. "I thought we were done with all of this." "We are done with them," I said firmly. "They're behind bars where they belong. We just need to be cautious and trust that the police will handle it." The next few weeks were tense. We took extra precautions, always aware of our surroundings. It was a stark contrast to the peace we had been enjoying, but we adapted, determined not to let fear dictate our lives. One evening, as we were putting Lily to bed, I heard a noise outside. My heart raced as I motioned for Emma to stay with Lily. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the door and cautiously opened it to find Mike standing on the porch. "Mike, you scared me half to death," I said, lowering the bat. "Sorry about that," he said, looking around. "I just wanted to check in and make sure you're okay. I've been keeping an eye on things, and it looks like the police have it under control." "Thanks, Mike. It means a lot to know you're looking out for us," I said, genuinely relieved to see him. We chatted for a while, and he reassured me that the increased security measures were working. As he left, I felt a renewed sense of determination. We would get through this, just as we had everything else. As time passed, the threats diminished, and life gradually returned to normal. The police had dismantled the remaining elements of Lisa and Marcus's network, and we could finally breathe easy. One sunny afternoon, Emma, Lily, Max, and I went for a picnic in the park. Watching Lily play with Max, I felt a deep sense of peace. We had faced our challenges head-on and come out stronger on the other side. Emma sat beside me, her hand in mine. "We've been through a lot," she said softly, "but we're still here, still strong." I nodded, squeezing her hand. "And we always will be. Together." We watched as Lily ran towards us, laughing and calling out for Max. In that moment, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together. Life had come full circle. From the depths of betrayal and despair, we had built something beautiful and enduring. Our journey was far from over, but with Emma, Lily, and Max by my side, I was ready for whatever came next. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the park, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The past was behind us, and the future was bright. And for the first time in a long while, I felt truly content. We packed up our picnic and headed home, hand in hand, ready to embrace the next chapter of our lives. Because in the end, it wasn't about the trials we had faced, but about the love and strength we had found along the way. And that was a story worth celebrating.